So Brad, thank you so much for being here. I think your story also really touched me because I'm a mom, and I think you're living the biggest nightmare of a mom. But also, I'm sure, like, no, I mean, just watching that video as a mom, just blah. But I really want to meet your parents. I've told you this like 3 times already, right? So I want to talk to them because they're also brave in my book. But I wanted to know, if you had kids, would you do the same thing? Would you set them free at 13?
You know, I've actually, that's a great question. I've started to think a lot about that. I mean, maybe someday I'll have kids, and that'd be awesome. I think I have to get in a relationship first, and there's a process here. I'm becoming aware of that. I honestly, I don't know that I could. I would hope I can, because I think it was the greatest gift that my parents ever gave me. They did it for my sister too, and she skipped the part with the porno, but she went straight into, I mean, girl and whatever. She did the same thing though. She left home. She's a year and a half older than me, and she moved to Europe and picked up independent study. And I just remember my mom in the kitchen as the plane flew over our house bawling. And at the time I was like, why is she so upset? Being the little brother, I was like, this is great. But in hindsight, I've come to know how hard it was on them as parents to make that decision, to empower us to do these things. And of course, probably somewhere in their minds knowing that we were going to make some pretty big decisions with that responsibility. And so, as I've said, I think it was the best thing that's ever happened to me, and it set me on a course that I would never change. But I'm not sure that I would have the same type of bravery they had to know that your kid was probably going to go do these things, and to give them sort of permission to do so. I hope so. It's a gift, I can tell you that. But it's probably the bravest thing anyone's done that I've known. The day I told my mom I was going to quit kayaking professionally, she just started bawling. So I then started to realize how big of an impact that has. Yes?
Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's very, very cool. What do you think the situation was for your parents that kind of queued up that first idea for them to even kind of, for lack of a better term, emancipate you or
Sure.
Kind of set you free? What was their childhood experience? I mean, do you know what it was that they kind of went through?
We've talked about it a lot since. At the time, I just thought that was normal. I thought every kid had that opportunity. Obviously, in hindsight, I don't think that's the case. They actually a friend of theirs had done something similar with his kids, and they really looked up to this guy. And, I think they really admired what he had done and had a lot of discussions between themselves and felt like it was the right thing to do. And I think it wasn't a decision that they took lightly. They knew that in doing so, as we've talked about, it was going to lead to a lot of really hard and probably selfless things on their end, where they just had to let go and give up their kids at an early age and trust that, whatever decisions they made were the right ones for them. So it was the catalyst was their friend who had done it, and they saw it in some way it was successful with his kids. And so they believed, I think, more philosophically in that concept and wanted to do the same for us. But yeah, again, if you're a parent out there, I always tell people tennis, golf, baseball. Don't teach them how to kayak. That's such a bad idea.
I'm actually curious, because in the end you talk about mortality, and just watching that video, I'm sure you can control only for so many variables when you're rafting, and there's actually so much that's out of your hands. Mm-hmm. I'm curious if you ever kind of made the connection between that and your own mortality. That's a very oblique question, but
no, that's a great question. I did actually draw that. I lost a lot of friends to kayaking, and ultimately the reason I started to get out of kayaking largely was because of the recognition that if you gamble enough times, you're probably going to lose. Eventually, if I kept doing this, there was a very high probability that I would have a really bad accident. And so, when you're young, you don't even that doesn't even enter your mind. You're just invincible. As you get older, you start to see it. But again, that was a choice for me, right? The choice to stop kayaking or to not run a rapid was a choice I was making personally. And it was based on those variables and those factors of knowing that this was probably too dangerous, or something just didn't feel right, or a friend of mine had just died and I wasn't over it, or whatever. The cancer thing is much different in that this isn't a choice. It's just something you get, and it's something you have to face. It's the rapid you have to run, so to speak. And the awareness that brings into your mind of living with a bit more intention and deciding how you're going to live the time you have, however long it is just a really beautiful transformation that I've seen time and again. And so, yes, similar in that I was really aware of how dangerous what I was doing was, but I also had an easy choice to stop doing it. Yeah, good question, though. Kevin.
Hey, Brad.
Hey, Kevin.
Given that this is...
Does everyone know Kevin? Creative Mornings, Kevin, yeah? There we go.
Hi, guys. Given that this is a creative audience, there's lots of designers in the audience and people from the creative industry. Are there any, when you think about First Ascents and even, I don't know, what you're working on now, are there any needs for how these sorts of people or the people in the audience can help out?
Yeah, we'll take it. So First Ascents, as I mentioned, we're a nonprofit, which is always fascinating and challenging and fun. And we provide these programs free of charge. And so one of our biggest things, we have about 1,000 people on a waiting list right now, but we're launching a community initiative to engage as many young adults with cancer as possible through more localized adventure programming. So you don't have to fly halfway across the country and spend a week learning how to rock climb or surf or kayak or whatever. Rather, we'll take you on a 1 or 2 day adventure closer to home, like climbing in the Gunks, for example, for people here in New York. And so just helping us spread that word, I think, would be hugely helpful. Any marketing, any outreach efforts, recruiting, social, anything like that that you guys can think of creatively would be awesome for us. And just spreading the word. Again, when someone, as a young adult, is diagnosed, the 2 biggest things they experience are alienation from their peer group and isolation. And so we're really trying to tear down those walls because they're really destructive and they can be, they grow over time, so to speak. And so the sooner you can catch someone and plug them into a really authentic, fun, adventurous community where they can interact and realize that they're not alone, that other people are going through all of these same things, and have those discussions that only they can have with one another, it's a really, just even that in itself is very helpful. And so I know you guys are, I'm just now understanding what a Twitter handle is and that sort of thing, so I'm not in a position to get that word out as well, but if you guys can help us creatively with any sort of social outreach, marketing, that type of stuff would be awesome. Oh good, I thought you were leaving and I was just gonna, I was gonna call you out in front of everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
So I see a similarity between kayaking and cancer in a way that it's like dealing with yourself in a situation of chaos where it is completely unknown and you really have to trust yourself to deal with that chaos of the water around yourself. And I feel like it's the same with cancer where you really have to trust yourself and it has nothing to do with the reality in a sense. So is there any advice that you can give for people to trust themselves a little better?
Yeah. We've drawn a lot of metaphors from the river. Or I shouldn't say we have, they have, our participants have. I'm just an active sort of audience member. And what I hear time and again is that cancer is something so far out of your control, as is kayaking. So often the river, right? That's the beautiful thing about it is you're just engaging with it. You're not trying to control it in any capacity. And so what I've heard time and again is just to allow things to happen and to let go of the things you can't control. And I think within cancer, that's such an important thing. Control what you can. For example, your diet. That's something you can actively control. But don't control what you can't, your prognosis. If your doctors put you on a treatment regimen, you have to let some things happen. And I think that's really good for all of us in life because I think we get so caught up in the future and what could happen and trying to control the things that are so far beyond us. And if we can just let those things go and just be more present with our situation, I think it'll be a lot easier to get through. And so we've seen, I've heard, some beautiful metaphors come out of that, the correlation between the river and the chaos between the river and cancer. Yeah. Thanks.
I was just hoping you could tell us a little bit more about the program. Like, how long do the patients engage with it? Where do you find them? Where's the funding coming from? Just
Absolutely.
a little more of an overview.
Happily.
Thank
So it started with week-long kayaking programs, and we've since evolved to, as I've said, add surfing, rock climbing, mountaineering. We've seen the same results from those experiences, and apparently not everyone wants to kayak, which I think is horrible. But we wanted to offer other opportunities. We've also added weekend-long programming, and now, as I mentioned, kind of more localized day programming. All of that's free of charge. And so we find our participants from all over the country. We have a lot of partnerships with major medical centers. Sloan Kettering's a big one here, and all over the country. And OHSU, USC, UCLA, all those places. And so they refer patients. We also have pharmaceutical partners, and their field staff is always meeting with the medical centers, and they tell the caregivers and the providers about the program, and again, it's a free resource, and so they refer patients. But interestingly enough, because we work with young adults with cancer, we find that most of them find us through social media, through Google, through friends, referrals, and so that's where a big piece of it is just trying to get the word out so that they're aware of it or that they can easily find it. As far as paying for it, Tina and I could probably talk for days on how to fund things. It's fascinating. We do a lot of crowdsource funding. We had a bunch of people run the New York Marathon recently and raise money for us, which was amazing. We have pharmaceutical partners, as I mentioned, corporate partners in the outdoor industry and beyond. We have large family foundations, private donations, events. I mean, you name it. Everything shy of robbing banks at this point. Anything to get money. And then we just put as much of it as we can to growing the program. Does that answer all your questions?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, cool. And I think it's also important to say, I get this a lot, but we take, the program takes every participant, right? So regardless of your diagnosis, your prognosis, what statement you are with, if you're cured, in remission, if you're incurable, all stages and forms of cancer, all physical abilities. Everyone thinks, I've never kayaked before. Well, that's kind of the whole point. We're going to teach you to kayak. And so I'm really trying to make people realize that there's no barrier to entry at all. And so I think if you do know someone with cancer, if you talk to people who do, making sure that they're aware that this is just, it is what it is. It's just there to support them. Yeah, she asked how I handle it emotionally. Damn it, someone had to ask that. I don't know that I do all the time. I know I spoke at the Do lectures and I talked for the first time. Through this program, right, I've become really, really good friends with a lot of people with cancer. Really, some of my best friends now have come through our program. And the worst news in the world is when they relapse or when their prognosis gets really bad. And, saying goodbye to your friends is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. As I said, I lost a lot of friends kayaking, but that's different. I didn't say goodbye to them. It just ended, and then I had to deal with it. When one of your best friends finds out they have 2 weeks to live, and you have to write them that last letter or have that last phone call, it's really the most awful thing in the world. And then, of course, they plan their funeral, and if you're a part of that process, and it's emotionally complicated. And I've tried to understand how to deal with it, because each time this happens, it requires a lot of attention. And I can honestly say I still don't know how best to deal with it. We're actually providing grief training and counseling for our staff, because now we have people leading our programs that are trained by us, and about 25% of our participants don't survive. And so I think you just have to acknowledge it, and you have to find the good in it, because it's the only way to carry on. And just be grateful, because that hurt is representative of the fact that you knew that person, that you loved that person, and that's a gift. So I wish I had more of an answer there, but I still haven't figured it out after 13 years. It's a really tough thing. That it? All right. Thanks, guys.